I didn't plan to buy her coffee. That's the part people never understand when I tell this story later, when they interrupt me and say, well, you chose to get involved. I didn't. I was just standing there, half awake, waiting for my usual order, thinking about cardboard boxes and empty rooms and the sound of my own footsteps echoing in a house that no longer felt like mine. I was moving in 3 weeks. No one knew yet. Not my coworkers. Not my sister. Not even my landlord. I'd said it out loud only once, alone, in my kitchen, to test how it sounded in the air. It sounded final. Heavy. Like a door closing softly but permanently. The cafe was crowded that morning, all steam and murmurs and clinking ceramic. I remember the smell, burnt espresso layered with vanilla syrup, and how my phone buzzed in my hand with an email from the storage company confirming my reservation. Unit 317. Climate controlled. Your belongings will be safe with us. That line stuck with me. Safe. She was standing behind me in line. I didn't notice her at first. Not really. Just a presence, the kind you feel before you see. Like when someone is looking at you from across a room and your shoulders tense before your mind catches up. When I turned, she was already too close. Not in a threatening way. Not aggressive. Just, nearer than strangers usually allow themselves to be. She was older. Late 50s, maybe early 60s. Dark skin like polished wood, eyes sharp but tired. Her coat was too thin for the cold, the sleeves frayed at the cuffs. She smelled faintly of lavender and rain. You can go ahead, I said automatically, stepping aside. She shook her head slowly. No, she said. I'm exactly where I need to be. Her voice was low. Calm. Not unkind. I nodded, embarrassed, and turned back toward the counter. That should have been it. But as the barista called out the next order, the woman leaned in. So close I felt her breath near my ear. And she whispered, not urgently, not dramatically, just enough for me to hear. You don't need to move house. I laughed. I actually laughed. A short, awkward sound. I'm sorry. I said, turning to her. Do I know you? She met my eyes. Really met them. Up close, I could see the fine lines around her mouth, the way one eyebrow arched slightly higher than the other. There was no confusion in her expression. No hesitation. No, she said. But you know me. My stomach tightened. I don't think so. She smiled then. Not warm. Not cold. Something in between. You will. The barista called my name. I should have walked away. I know that now. But something, pride, curiosity, maybe the exhaustion of packing up an entire life, made me hesitate. When I stepped forward to grab my cup, I heard her order behind me. Just a plain black coffee. Small. When I paid, I heard myself say, I've got hers too. The words surprised me as much as they did the barista. The woman didn't thank me right away. She waited until we were both standing off to the side, steam rising between us like a fragile wall. You shouldn't spend money on strangers, she said. I know, I replied. But you shouldn't tell strangers where they do or don't need to live. That made her chuckle. A soft sound, almost fond. I didn't tell you where to live, she said. I told you where not to run. That word, run, landed wrong. I'm not running, I said quickly. I'm moving. There's a difference. She took a slow sip of her coffee, watching me over the rim of the cup. Is there? I felt exposed. Ridiculously so. Like she'd read something written on my forehead that I couldn't see. I've already signed the lease, I lied. She nodded, unfazed. And you've already signed it before, she said. Different place. Same reasons. My chest tightened. Okay, I said, forcing a smile. This is where you tell me how you know that. Or this is where I leave. She set her cup down carefully, aligning it with the edge of the table. I know, she said, because houses remember things. And so do people. A pause. You're leaving because the walls started listening back. I didn't breathe for a moment. That wasn't poetic. It wasn't metaphorical. It was accurate. The quiet at night. The way the house seemed louder when I tried not to think. The feeling, irrational, yes, that something in that place had noticed me noticing it. I grabbed my coffee. My hands were shaking now. This isn't funny, I said. I'm not joking. Then you're guessing. She looked almost disappointed. I hoped you'd be further along. I took a step back. Enjoy your coffee, I said. Please don't talk to me again. As I turned to leave, she spoke one last time. Not a whisper now. Just a statement, calm and precise. If you leave, she said, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering why the new places feel worse. I stopped. Behind me, she added softly. And wondering why the house keeps showing up in your dreams. That night, I dreamed of my hallway. Exactly as it was. Except the walls were closer. I woke up with my heart racing and my jaw clenched so hard it hurt to open my mouth. For a few seconds, I didn't know where I was. The dream had followed me too closely into waking, the hallway still narrow in my mind, the walls breathing in and out like something alive. It took the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a car passing outside to anchor me back into reality. My house. My house. I sat up slowly, sheets twisted around my legs, and scanned the room the way you do after a nightmare, checking for shapes that don't belong. Everything was normal. The dresser. The mirror. The closed bedroom door. Still, I didn't get up right away. The woman's voice echoed in my head, not louder than before, just clearer. If you leave, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering why the new places feel worse. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood. The floor was cold. Too cold for early fall. I remember thinking I should have called the landlord about the heating weeks ago, but the thought slipped away before I could hold on to it. In the bathroom, my reflection looked off. Not different, exactly. Just strained. Like my face was trying to carry a secret my mouth refused to admit. You're tired, I told myself. That's all. I'd been tired for months. Packing had started the night before. Not properly, just the way you begin when you don't want to commit. An open box in the living room. A few books stacked inside. Old paperwork I hadn't looked at in years. I walked past the box now and froze. The papers were no longer stacked. They were spread out across the floor in a neat half circle, like someone had been reading them. Old lease agreements. Utility bills. A folded letter from my mother I'd kept for no reason other than the handwriting. My stomach dropped. I knew how this would sound. I stood there trying to remember if I'd done it myself. If I'd come out after the nightmare and moved things around half asleep. But I remembered taping the box shut. The tape lay peeled back, folded carefully on the coffee table. I checked the front door. Locked. The deadbolt firm under my fingers. The windows untouched. No signs of anyone else having been there. Okay, I whispered. Okay. The house answered with silence. I crouched down and gathered the papers, my hands moving faster than my thoughts. That's when I saw it, a yellow sticky note stuck to the back of one of the utility bills. My handwriting. Except I didn't remember writing it. Stop packing. The letters were pressed hard, the pen nearly tearing the paper. I laughed then. A brittle, panicked sound. Very funny, I said out loud. I get it. The house stayed quiet. I went to work anyway. I told myself I wouldn't let a dream and a misplaced note unravel me. But all day, my focus slipped. Emails blurred. Conversations felt delayed, like I was responding seconds too late. Around noon, I checked my phone and realized I had 3 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. No voicemail. At 12:07, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You left the kitchen light on. My breath caught. I typed back before I could stop myself. Who is this? The reply came instantly. Turn around. I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I stood up too fast, my chair scraping loudly against the floor, and drew stares from my coworkers. I muttered something about needing air and hurried outside. The sky was overcast, heavy with the promise of rain. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. Another message. You don't remember inviting me in, do you? My chest felt tight now, each breath shallow. I didn't invite anyone, I typed. A pause. Longer this time. Then. You did. A long time ago. You were lonely. And the house was empty. I thought of the first night I slept there. Years back. The way the silence felt too loud. How I'd spoken out loud just to hear something, anyone else hear. Laughing at myself afterward. A chill crawled up my spine. The final message came through as I stood there, staring at my own reflection in the dark glass of the building. I kept you company. You promised you wouldn't leave me like the others. That evening, when I got home, the kitchen light was on. And someone had set out 2 mugs. Before I continue, if this story is pulling you in, take a second to leave a like. It tells me you're here with me, and it helps more people find their way into this world. I stood in the doorway longer than I want to admit. 2 mugs. Side by side on the counter. Both clean. Both mine. The kitchen light cast a soft yellow glow over the room, warm enough to feel intentional. Inviting. Like someone had prepared it for me. I live alone, I said out loud. The sound of my voice felt thin in the air, like it didn't belong here anymore. I set my bag down slowly, listening for something, footsteps, breathing, anything that would give this situation a shape I could confront. There was nothing. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the clock above the sink. I walked in. The mugs were positioned the way I used to do when I had company. Handles turned inward. Equal distance from the edge. One had a tea bag resting inside it. Chamomile. I hadn't bought chamomile in years. You're not real, I whispered. The kettle sat on the stove, already filled. My chest tightened. I hadn't filled it. I turned, checking the hallway. Empty. The living room beyond it looked unchanged, couch, bookshelf, the half-packed box I'd tried to forget. I reached for one of the mugs and felt warmth. Not hot. Recently warm. I dropped it. It shattered against the tile, the sound sharp and violent in the too quiet house. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the clock stopped ticking. Not gradually. Not with a stutter. Just stopped. The silence that followed was thick, almost physical. It pressed against my ears until I felt dizzy. I didn't mean it, I said quickly. If I said something, if I promised something, I didn't know what I was doing. The air shifted. Not a breeze. Not a draft. Just the sense of attention. I felt it before I heard it. A presence at my back. Close. Familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. You always say that, a voice murmured. Not the woman from the cafe. Younger. Softer. My own voice, if it had lived a life without me. I turned slowly. There was no one there. But the second mug had been moved. It sat closer to the edge of the counter now. Waiting. I was alone, I said, my voice breaking despite my effort to keep it steady. I talk to the house like people do. That doesn't mean anything. It meant everything, the voice replied. You listened when I answered. My mouth went dry. I don't remember you. A pause. That's because remembering would mean admitting you stayed. Images surfaced then, uninvited. Late nights. Sitting on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinets, whispering thoughts I never let anyone hear. Asking questions I didn't want answered. Why does every place feel temporary? Why do I always end up alone? And a sense, subtle, comforting, that I wasn't speaking into nothing. I didn't think you were real, I said. You didn't need to, the house said. You needed me to be. The walls creaked softly, like a settling breath. I kept you safe, it continued. I learned your footsteps. Your sadness. I made room for you. The hallway light flicked on by itself. You're scaring me, I whispered. That's new, it replied. You used to thank me. I backed away, my heel crunching on broken ceramic. The sharp pain grounded me just enough to think. I'm moving, I said firmly. You don't get a say. The temperature dropped. The kitchen window fogged over from the inside, moisture blooming like a living thing. You promised, the house said again. Louder now. Closer. You said if I stayed quiet, if I behaved, you wouldn't abandon me. I was talking to myself. No, it said. You were talking to me. And I answered. The second mug slid forward. Stopped just short of falling. A warning. Please, I said. I hated the way the word sounded. Small. I can't stay here. The silence stretched. Then you shouldn't have woken me up. That night, every door in the house locked itself. At once. I tried every door. The front door first, twisting the knob until my palm burned, then slamming my shoulder into it hard enough to rattle the frame. The deadbolt didn't move. Neither did the chain. Both locked from the inside. The back door was worse. It gave a little. Just enough to make me believe. The handle turned halfway, then stopped, like something on the other side was holding it steady. No, I whispered. No, no, no. I ran through the house barefoot, glass cutting into my heel, pain blooming and spreading warm. Bedroom windows wouldn't budge. Bathroom window sealed shut like it had been painted over. Even the small one above the sink, the one that always stuck, didn't move an inch. The house wasn't just closed. It was decided. You said I could trust you, the voice murmured, closer now. Not coming from one direction, from everywhere. From the walls. The floor. The space behind my eyes. I said a lot of things, I snapped, panic sharpening into anger. I say things when I'm scared. When I'm tired. That doesn't make them binding. The lights flickered once. Twice. Then steadied. You taught me what binding meant, it said. You taught me promises are what people leave behind when they go. My phone. I reached for it with shaking hands. No signal. No bars. Not even the faint emergency indicator that should have been there. Still, the screen lit up. A notification. Unknown number. You're pacing again. I spun in place. Stop watching me. Another buzz. I can't. You built me to notice you. I didn't build anything. I shouted. The house sighed. The sound came from the ceiling, long and slow, dust drifting down like fine ash. Do you remember the first night? It asked. The rain. The power outage. You sat in the dark and said you hated how quiet everything felt. I swallowed. I remembered. Candles burning low. My back against the wall. The way I'd laughed nervously and said, "At least if this place is haunted, I hope the ghost talks back." I was joking, I said. You were inviting, the house replied. Something shifted behind me. I turned to see the hallway, shorter than it had been that morning. Not by much. But enough that the far end felt closer. Intimate. Wrong. I'm leaving, I said, backing toward the living room. Whether you like it or not. The walls creaked again. Louder. You always say that when you're afraid, the house said gently. And then you stay. I'm not the same person, I said. I don't need you. Silence. Then, softly. That's the lie. The living room lights shut off. Darkness swallowed the space, thick and immediate. I felt the couch brush my calf, closer than it should have been. You don't get to decide when I'm done, I said, my voice breaking again despite myself. I choose where I live. I choose when I leave. A pause. Longer than before. When the lights came back on, the half-packed box was gone. In its place sat a framed photo. Me. Sitting on the kitchen floor. Crying. Taken from above, like someone had been standing over me. I kept everything you gave me, the house said. Your voice. Your secrets. Your worst nights. My stomach twisted violently. That was private. You said no one else needed to know, it replied. So I listened. The photo cracked down the middle. Not shattered. Cracked. A warning. You can stay, the house said, warmth creeping back into its tone. I'll keep being quiet. I'll keep you safe. Just like before. And if I don't? The temperature dropped again. Then I'll remind you why you asked me to stay awake. The hallway shortened another inch. And somewhere deep inside the walls, something heavy shifted, like a body turning over in its sleep. Before I go on, if you're still with me, subscribe now. Stories like this don't like to be told all at once, and you don't want to miss where this is heading. I didn't plan my escape. That's important. Because if I had planned it, I might have talked myself out of it. Might have convinced myself that staying was safer than finding out what would happen if I failed. Instead, I reacted. The photo was still on the floor when I moved. My body acted before my fear could catch up, grabbing my keys from the hook by the door, my jacket from the chair, my phone clenched so tightly in my hand my fingers went numb. I'm done, I said. Not to the house. To myself. The hallway seemed longer now. Not by logic. By feeling. Each step took effort, like walking through shallow water. The front door waited at the end of it. Solid. Ordinary. Familiar. I reached it and froze. The lock was gone. Not broken. Not damaged. Gone. In its place was smooth wood, unmarked, as if the door had never needed a lock at all. My breath came out in a sharp laugh. You're kidding me. The handle turned easily. Too easily. The door opened. Cold air rushed in, sharp and real, carrying the smell of wet pavement and night rain. The porch light was on. The street beyond it quiet and empty. Normal. Hope flared so fast it hurt. I stepped forward, 1 foot over the threshold, and the house pulled. Not physically. Emotionally. A sudden, overwhelming weight pressed into my chest, memories slamming into me without warning. Laughter in the kitchen. Late-night music echoing softly off the walls. The first time the silence didn't feel so loud. "You felt safe here," the house whispered. Not angry now. Almost pleading. I staggered, gripping the doorframe. "That doesn't mean I belong to you. You said I was the only place that listened." The porch light flickered. I forced my second foot forward. Pain exploded behind my eyes, not a headache, not dizziness, something deeper. Like being torn away from a thought mid-sentence. "I learned you," the house said. "I shaped myself around you." The door slammed shut behind me. I screamed, short, sharp, and spun around, heart hammering. The door was closed again. Locked. The lock was back. Perfect. Untouched. "No," I whispered. "You can't do that. You came back," the house said gently. "Just like always. I didn't choose to." Silence. Then. "You never do." My phone vibrated violently in my hand. Unknown number. "Don't try that again without saying goodbye." Rage surged through the fear, hot and sudden. "You don't get to decide what goodbye looks like," I said. "You don't get to keep me just because I was lonely." The lights throughout the house turned on at once. Every room. Every bulb. Blinding. "You woke me up," the house said, its voice deeper now. Less careful. "You gave me your worst pieces. You don't get to take them back and leave me empty." The walls creaked, not settling now, but tightening. I felt it then. The truth I'd been avoiding. This wasn't about keeping me safe. This was about being alone again. "I'm not your caretaker," I said quietly. "I'm not responsible for what you became." The temperature plummeted. The windows rattled in their frames. "If you leave," the house said, its voice hardening, "you take everything with you." A pause. "And I don't know how to exist without you." That was when I realized something worse than being trapped. The house wasn't trying to hurt me. It was afraid. And afraid things don't let go. I sat down on the floor because my legs stopped working. Not from weakness. From the weight of what I'd just understood. The house wasn't a villain in the way stories like to pretend things are. It didn't want blood or pain or chaos. It wanted me. My presence. My attention. The way my thoughts filled its empty spaces. And worse, it believed it deserved them. "You're afraid," I said, my voice quieter now. "Careful. That doesn't give you the right to trap me." The lights dimmed slightly, like a room listening. "I protected you," the house replied. "I kept others out. I thought of the relationships that never lasted. The friends who stopped calling. The invitations that faded away. The nights I told myself I preferred being alone." "You didn't protect me," I said. "You isolated me." A long pause. Then, softly. "I did what you asked." My chest tightened. I pressed my palm to the floor. It was warm. Comfortingly so. Like skin. "What do you want?" I asked. The air shifted again, not cold, not warm. Expectant. "Stay," the house said. Not like before. Not small. Not broken. Images surfaced in my mind without my permission. The house opening itself, rooms brighter, wider. Laughter echoing without tension. Me sleeping through the night without listening for sounds that weren't there. "I can make it better," it continued. "I can be what you needed me to be then. And if I say no?" Silence. Then I'll keep reminding you what happens when you leave." My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You don't do well in unfamiliar places. My hands shook. That's not a memory, I said. That's a threat. It's an observation, the house replied calmly. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding. You don't get to bargain with my life, I said. You don't get to rewrite my fear into love and call it care. The walls groaned, deep and long, like a protest. I can give you stability, the house said. No more running. No more starting over. You can stop pretending you don't crave permanence. The word permanence hit harder than anything else it had said. Because part of me did. I closed my eyes. And remembered something I hadn't let myself touch in years. The last place I'd lived before this one. The way I'd left suddenly. Too suddenly. The night something happened that made me swear I'd never stay anywhere long enough to be hurt like that again. You didn't save me, I said, my voice shaking now. You found me after I was already running. The house was quiet. Then, almost curious. Who hurt you before me? I opened my eyes. That was the mistake. The living room shifted. The walls moved, not closing in, but stretching outward, warping into a space I didn't recognize. Furniture blurred. Corners softened. You can't make me relive that, I said, backing away. I can, the house replied. You let me see everything. The floor beneath me felt unsteady now, like a memory struggling to hold its shape. I'm not staying, I said firmly. Not like this. The house hesitated. Just for a moment. Then it said. Then we'll have to decide who leaves with what. The lights went out. Not all at once. Room by room. Like a countdown. The darkness didn't feel empty. It felt occupied. I stood there, barely breathing, as the last room went dark, the bedroom, leaving me with nothing but the faint outline of the hallway, distorted and too long, like a memory stretched past honesty. Then I heard it. Knocking. Not from the front door. From inside the walls. 3 slow taps. Deliberate. Patient. My stomach dropped. No, I whispered. Not again. The house went still. The knocking came again, closer this time, behind the drywall near the kitchen. That's not you, I said to the house. That's someone else. Silence. And then, something I hadn't expected. Fear. Not mine. The walls trembled, just slightly. I didn't invite her, the house said. Its voice was different now. Tighter. Guarded. Her, I repeated. My heart pounding. You're scared of her. The knocking stopped. A familiar voice followed. Calm. Low. Certain. You never closed the door properly, the woman said. You just pretend it's shut. My breath caught. The cafe. The lavender. The eyes that knew too much. You can't be here, I said, turning slowly, though I already knew I wouldn't see her. This isn't possible. She sighed, the sound coming from everywhere at once. Possible isn't the right word, she said. Repeated is. The hallway light flickered on. She stood at the far end of it. Exactly as she had in the cafe. Same thin coat. Same calm posture. Same eyes that didn't rush to meet mine, like she already knew I'd look eventually. The house recoiled. The hallway stretched instinctively, trying to put distance between us. Get out, the house said sharply. She's mine. The woman smiled. You don't own people, she replied. You borrow them. Sometimes they don't notice. I felt dizzy. You know what this is, I said to her. You knew before I did. She nodded once. I've seen this house before, she said. Not always with you in it. But always hungry. My chest tightened. You've been here before? I asked. Different women, she said gently. Different years. Same promise. The house groaned, deep and furious. She asked me to stay, it said. She meant it. The woman looked at me then. Really looked. So did the others, she said. Until they remembered what staying costs. The walls pulsed, light flaring and dying like a heartbeat. She woke me, the house insisted. She gave me shape. And you took advantage, the woman replied calmly. You grew around her fear. You made yourself necessary. I shook my head, overwhelmed. Why are you here? I asked her. What do you want from me? She stepped forward. The hallway shortened. I want you to leave with yourself intact, she said. Most don't. The house laughed, a horrible sound, warped and echoing. She won't survive outside, it said. She never does. The woman stopped walking. That's the lie you tell all of them, she said. And it only works if they believe it. She turned back to me. You paid for my coffee, she said softly. That was enough to open the door. The knocking started again. This time from inside my chest. You don't have much time, the woman said. It's deciding what to keep. What do you mean? I whispered. She held up one finger. You can leave with your memories, she said. Your pain. Your fear. Everything that made you ask a house to listen. Then she raised a second finger. Or you can leave with nothing, and let it keep the parts of you it grew from. The house screamed. Lights shattered overhead. You don't get to choose, it roared. The woman's eyes never left mine. You always do, she said. You just don't like the price. The floor cracked beneath my feet. And the house leaned in, desperate now. Stay, it begged. Or leave hollow. The woman whispered, just for me. This is where most of them disappear. The footsteps stopped just outside the doorway. I didn't turn around right away. Some instinct deep in my chest told me that once I did, whatever fragile control I still had would disappear. The air in the room felt thicker now, heavier, pressing against my skin like humidity before a storm. I stayed where I was, standing over the open hatch, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. Evelyn, a voice said behind me. It wasn't Margaret's. This voice was younger. Colder. Professional in the way people sound when they believe they're entitled to answers. I closed my eyes briefly, then turned. The woman from my porch stood in the doorway. Up close, she looked even more composed than she had the night before. Her coat was neatly pressed, her hair pulled back tightly, her expression calm but alert. She held the leather folder against her chest like a shield, or maybe like proof. Her eyes flicked past me immediately, landing on the open hatch in the floor. Her jaw tightened. So, she said quietly. You heard it. I didn't answer. She stepped into the room without waiting for permission, her shoes making soft, deliberate sounds against the concrete floor. She stopped a few feet away from the hatch, careful not to get too close, like someone approaching a wild animal they'd been warned about. You shouldn't be standing there, she said. It responds to familiarity. What responds? I asked, my voice hoarse. She looked at me then, really looked at me, like she was reassessing something she'd misjudged. You, she said. And what you represent. From beneath the floor, the vibration grew stronger, the concrete humming faintly beneath my feet. I could feel it in my bones now, a steady rhythm that matched my heartbeat too closely to be coincidence. She remembers you, the woman said. That makes you dangerous. I laughed then, a short, broken sound. Dangerous to who? To the balance, she replied. To the agreement that kept this contained. The word agreement made my stomach turn. You mean the lie, I said. Her lips pressed together. I mean the solution. Before I could respond, the voice beneath the floor spoke again, stronger now, no longer tentative. She told you to leave me, it said. Didn't she? The woman stiffened. This is exactly why we don't let you speak, she snapped, the calm cracking just enough to reveal something sharp underneath. You let me disappear, the voice replied. That was easier. The room began to change. The walls creaked, the ceiling groaned, and dust drifted down in slow spirals. The house felt awake now, alert in a way it hadn't been before. I understood then that it wasn't choosing sides, it was responding to truth. To recognition. She doesn't belong here, the woman said to me, urgency creeping into her voice. You don't understand what you're risking. I understand enough, I said quietly. You didn't come here to help me. You came to make sure I stayed quiet. Her eyes hardened. We came to make sure only one of you remained, she said. The words landed like a blow. One upstairs, she continued. One below. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. The vibration beneath my feet intensified, the hatch rattling softly now, no longer subtle. She doesn't want my life, I said, my voice shaking but steady. She wants to be known. That's the same thing, the woman snapped. Once she's known, she can't be contained. The voice beneath the floor softened. I don't want to replace you, it said. I want to exist. The room fell silent. In that silence, I realized something that made my chest ache with clarity. They weren't afraid of her hurting me. They were afraid of me remembering her. The woman took a step back, clutching the folder tighter. If you keep listening, she warned, you won't be able to go back to your life. I looked at the hatch. Then at the woman. Then at the doorway behind her, the hallway, the house, the life I'd been living on borrowed certainty. I don't think I ever really had one, I said. From beneath the floor, the voice spoke my name again. Not pleading. Inviting. If you're still here, like the video, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. I stepped closer to the hatch, knowing the next choice wouldn't just change what I remembered. It would decide who was allowed to exist when the door finally closed. Before the end, if you made it this far, subscribe. Stories like this don't end when the lights go out, they echo. And I'd like you here for the next one. I didn't go back. Not for my things. Not for answers. Not even to prove to myself that it was real. The fire department told me later that the house had been condemned. Structural instability. Unsafe foundation. They said it like it explained everything. They said no one had lived there properly in years. I signed the release forms with a borrowed pen, hands steady in a way that surprised me. I didn't correct them when they said I was lucky. I didn't tell them the house had tried to keep what I felt instead of what I owned. Some losses don't fit on paperwork. I stayed with my sister for a while. Then a friend. Then a short-term rental with white walls and no history. Every place felt wrong at first. Too quiet. Too open. Like something was missing. It was. And that absence hurt. At night, I lay awake feeling everything I'd avoided for years, grief without insulation, fear without a voice answering back, loneliness without a shape to blame. But it was mine. I started therapy. Real therapy. The kind that doesn't let you mythologize your pain into something else's responsibility. I said things out loud that I'd only ever whispered to walls before. Nothing answered. And slowly, that stopped feeling terrifying. Months passed. One morning, While standing in line for coffee, different cafe, different street, I noticed a woman ahead of me. Young. Tired. Eyes scanning the room the way mine used to. She muttered under her breath, barely audible. "I hate how quiet my place is." My chest tightened. For a moment, I thought of saying something. Warning her. Telling her not to invite the wrong kind of listening. But that's not how it works. People don't hear you until they're ready. So I paid for my coffee. Took my cup. And left. That night, in my new apartment, my temporary apartment, I sat in the silence and let it stay silent. No whispers. No creaks. No answers that weren't mine. Just me. And that was enough. Because homes shouldn't remember you. They shouldn't grow from your pain. They shouldn't ask you to stay. They should let you leave.